Hello again, everybody, and welcome to episode number 15 of VIBELAND Sports, a weekly presentation of VIBELAND Media. I'm Todd Miller, joined by
Kelby Peterson
and
Casady Fletcher.
Hi, guys.
How's it going?
Enjoying the first few weeks of the NCAA tournament?
Oh, having a lot of fun.
You know it.
I'm going to be honest, I didn't enjoy the first weekend. Now, the Elite Eight last weekend certainly made up for it and more.
Absolutely, man. It was must-see TV. You couldn't look away.
Oh, yeah. It's just been crazy. There's been so many games go down to the wire and a lot of upsets in my mind that I think make it more interesting. So,
as we promised, if you entered our VIBELAND Sports bracket, it would not be hard to beat KP, Casady, and I.
Lived up to
And if
that
you don't
promise.
believe me, go look, because two of us on this podcast no longer have anybody in the Final Four.
well, and I have no one after this round. I got one of the Final Four, and then that was it for me. So, not
that
much
was-
better.
That was a nice pick with Texas Tech.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, combined the three of us, we got one team in the Final Four.
Oof.
Yeah, good job, guys.
You know what? And we were right. We said the winner of Michigan, Texas Tech would win that regional.
right.
Yep.
It wouldn't be Gonzaga. I thought was a weak seed. On today's episode, we're going to be talking fitness with Quest Speed proprietor Keith Coury from California. That's coming up. Also, we have a special bonus podcast for VIBELAND Sports coming up this week. Mr. Reed Linus is with us here briefly. He's the co-founder of VIBELAND. And Reed, I know you've been walking on water for a while, excited about David Meltzer's
No,
appearance.
I've been excited to be on VIBELAND Sports, to be honest with you. I mean, this is the staple of VIBELAND right here.
Well, we've made your dreams
I mean,
come true.
I'm shaking right now, guys.
You
Like,
should be.
you guys are killing it.
You should
Amazing.
be.
It's amazing what's going on upstairs at the HQ.
And we don't usually let you in here to see either.
No, yeah, this is my first time like behind the scenes.
That's right. First in-studio guest, right?
I was their number one fan, and today they just happened to invite me on after calling them after so many times. And banging on Cassidy's door too.
Nobody responded, but we did have a giveaway. Enter your name into a hat. If it's drawn, you will be an in-studio guest. And Reed was the only one that entered.
Yes,
Congratulations.
I did.
Welcome to
I
studio.
appreciate it. Hey, thanks for all the love and support, guys.
All right,
Appreciate
let's
it.
talk about David Meltzer.
Yes.
Big-time guest coming up on Friday's bonus
Wow.
podcast.
How was that?
It's pretty cool.
He was a great guy.
Very
Awesome
good
dude.
guy.
And shout out to Cody Dover. So Cody Dover is one of my good friends who I met like within the past year through Al, aka Fredo, who does music for Sleep is for Billionaires. And Cody's huge into real estate, and I guess he paid for the class for David Meltzer. And that's how he got connected and was able to get into mentorship. But David Meltzer's his mentor. And he was like, hey, I love y'all's podcast. And wasn't talking about the Bible. He was talking about VIBELAND Sports.
We figured,
Yeah.
but we weren't going to say
Oh
it.
yeah, I know. That's why it's an honor to be on here. Got it set up for today, which is April 1st, and this is not April Fool's Day. We do have David Meltzer on VIBELAND Sports. Woo! And thank you for that, Cody Dover. Huge shout out to you. And he's also going to be on the Bible next week or the week prior.
Okay.
So there's a lot going on.
We've got some people going, who the heck is David
Are you
Meltzer?
kicking me off right now?
No, I'm not. I'm
Okay.
going to tell people what I wanted you to tell
I'm
them, but you
nervous
didn't
right
do
now.
it.
Okay.
Who David Meltzer is. He's the CEO of Sports One Marketing,
Yes.
an agency that he co-founded with Hall of Fame quarterback Warren Moon. He also is a best-selling author. He's authored 4 books, 2 of which went to #1 nationally and internationally. He was the CEO for the first smartphone from Samsung. The dude has
That was
done
crazy
it
to hear
all.
that.
He's
Yes.
done it all.
He's seen it all, and he's a humble guy, and he just shoots you straight. And you killed that interview, by the way. I mean, your research. If you guys don't know, Todd Miller, VIBELAND Sports at Bison Voice. Was you finally got an Instagram?
Well, I've had one for a long time. I've just
Oh,
finally
you
used
finally
it.
started. You got a profile picture and started posting.
Do I have a profile picture?
Yeah, you
I
do
didn't know I
now.
did.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys did it while I was.
Todd's a big Twitter guy, so we had to get him over on Instagram. But shout out to Todd. Really, did an awesome job, and I appreciate you guys having me on. But David Meltzer coming up. Are we dropping it next week, Cass?
This Friday. Yep.
Da-na-na, bonus pod.
I like that. That's pretty
Nice.
good. He also was a member of the sports agency team with Lee Steinberg. By
Yeah,
the
he was
way.
like
just
a
just
lawyer,
a little guy.
Yeah, lawyer.
He had some pretty cool
See, I didn't know, and you did your
clients.
research. I didn't know that he had a very high and then he had a very low. Like there's some really good stuff in that podcast, guys. So tune in Friday. It's going to be awesome. You guys will enjoy it. David Meltzer, thank you so much. Sports One Marketing. And hopefully we can get the president on next.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Hey, maybe we can pull a few strings with Cody Dover. Seems like he's got
Be careful about pulling too many strings, though, because things tend to unravel, and they certainly could unravel up here very quickly.
Yeah. So, then I'm not touching the strings. That's why we leave it to you guys here at VIBELAND Sports and Casady Fletcher, your host of The Vibe.
You're the man. You're the man. Thanks for coming on, Reed.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
That is Mr. Reed Linus, co-founder of VIBELAND. You can hear him on the Bible as well, promoting our upcoming bonus podcast on Friday. David Meltzer, the CEO of Sports One Marketing, who he co-founded with Warren Moon. On today's 15th episode of VIBELAND Sports, as we told you, proprietor Keith Coury from California is going to join us from Questspeed, another guy that deals with a lot of high-end professional athletes. I think you'll enjoy that interview as well. All right, guys, we got 3 topics to touch on. The first, the Oklahoma City Thunder continue a free fall. They can't beat anybody. They have more home court losses than all but one of the 16 teams that, if the season ended today, would be in the NBA playoffs. That didn't get it done. And you know what the problem is? Among others, they continue to bury themselves very early. I don't care if you're playing the best team in the league or the worst team in the league, or a team that wants to tank like the Dallas Mavericks. If you are continually down 10, 12, 14 points, it's tough to come back. And that's a starting point for this discussion with OKC.
And it seems like earlier in the year, that's kind of how they survived. I mean, how many games in a row? There was a streak where we had been it was like 6 out of 7. We had been down 13 plus, and we had come back and won them. We're just not winning them anymore. It's just this team, what we relied on earlier. Like you said, Todd, the slow starts. Earlier in the season, we were able to come back and have the energy to finish and confidence to do it. Well, that cockiness, I think, has totally bit us where the sun doesn't shine now and make us look just awful because, like you said, we're getting off to these slow starts. What was it? A couple of games ago, each half we started off with a 9-0 run down.
Let me give you a stat, KP. Of the last 19 Thunder games, in 17 of those 19, Oklahoma City has trailed at halftime.
Jeez.
That's terrible.
And I wonder what the stat is now of how many times in recent games where we've trailed by double digits. It seems like that's an everyday thing now to look up at the scoreboard, and it's like you'll see, we were within 2, then go get a drink, and you come back, and we're down by 11. We just give up runs. We don't play defense. Then on offense, we try to respond with a crazy jacked up 3, and it doesn't go in. Our shot selection is terrible. Our defensive presence is terrible. Our state of mind, I think, is the biggest thing, guys. That's the biggest problem, and how do you fix that?
You know, people come into Oklahoma City anymore. They know they're going to get good looks against that Thunder defense from the perimeter. And one of the worst culprits on Sunday against the Mavericks was Paul George. People were getting around him and getting to the basket, Casady. Everybody asked me, what's wrong with the Thunder? Well, there's a lot of things. First of all, they're a flawed team.
Yes.
A badly flawed team that has fooled us, I think, all season long. But the biggest problem is 2 things. They're not defending the way they did. And Paul George, I don't care what he says, is not healthy. And his production has dropped off as well, with both shoulders being injured.
And that was the thing, too. Early in the year, it was Paul George to the rescue. It seemed like every second half, he'd go off and have 25 of his 35 points in the third and fourth quarter. Well, now that he's injured and really can't perform at that level, we're still digging ourselves these holes, can't dig out of them. We don't have Paul George now at full strength. We don't have the MVP Paul George that was playing for the first, 2/3 of the season at least. And it's a snowball effect, I think. When Paul's not on top of his defense, then I think Russ slacks off a little bit. That puts more pressure on Steven Adams, so he's more worn out, and that's going to make him less effective on the offensive end. I mean, where does it end?
And guys, I think if you look at Steven Adams this year, he's obviously not himself. But if you watch the possessions,
I don't think he's healthy.
I think one of the reasons, guys, is because he's doing so much on the defensive end. He is covering for the other 4 guys' mistakes on every single possession.
Constantly.
Watch Steven Adams on defense, and his responsibility is just picking up the garbage for everybody else. Everybody's mistake. Like Russell constantly is just trusting that Steven's behind him. Everybody defends knowing that they've got Steven back there, and that's affecting him negatively on the offensive end.
And you know what? He had Andre Robertson there to also help him out with those. Now that Dre's not there in the lineup all season, now it's only Steven. You're right. He's having to make up for 4 guys where it was Andre and Steven. Right. He wasn't having to make up for Dre's mistakes. And so between the two of those guys, they made up for all kinds of Thunder just blunders. And now with Steven, again, being as tired as he is because of all the effort he's having to do to pick up the slack, he just can't perform.
And yeah, we're getting on to Paul George a little bit too on his defense. It's like we were talking about earlier. It's the mindset that this team has right now. You know, earlier in the year, Paul George was getting after it. Everybody else was getting after it. We were a defensive team. You did not want to play because every guy on the floor was getting after it. But it was like that was inspired play. Like everybody else on the floor was inspired because of how hard we're going on defense. And now when you look to your leaders and they're playing lackadaisical, everybody else on the court's doing it too. And Russ and PG, I'm sorry to say it, but they're setting a bad example this year of how to handle turmoil and things like this. They need to step up and say, hey guys, there's a problem. Let's address it. The saying over and over, hey, we're fine. We're fine. We said that all last year. It didn't work. We've said it all this year. And as a fan base, I think we've believed that we were fine all year this year, but it has come down to time where it is time to press, if not just press the panic button, smash the panic button.
Well, I'm gonna go further on your point. The Thunder as an organization control the message to the fan base.
Oh, absolutely.
And the fan base, by and large, swallows everything that comes out of the organization, its coaches, its players' mouths whole. Well, I'm going to tell you what, I'm not buying that it doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. It does. We sat here with 5 Thunder games remaining. In their previous 22 games, Oklahoma City is 7-15. Now, I understand it's a 0-0 record when you start the postseason, but championship teams or teams that are going to make postseason runs and stay around long have at least some semblance of momentum that they carry over. It happened with Utah last year. Everybody says, well, Utah doesn't have a chance. They didn't have a very good regular season.
Thunder dominated that regular season series last year.
Exactly. Right? But you know what? The Jazz, go back and look it up, played well in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. It carried over. So Paul George and Russell Westbrook and the front office of the Thunder can sit and say it doesn't matter. It does matter. Because you know what? This is a team that they ought to petition the NBA, if they play the Golden State Warriors, to make it a best of 5 and get this thing over as quickly as they can.
Oh, jeez.
Because they have if you're one of those people out there that are still buying into the hope that the Thunder are going to win a series, you're crazy. The sand of time have run out. They've run out of time. They've run out of excuses.
I think if you think the Thunder are going to win more than one game.
There's still people holding out hope, KP. I promise you, because the message from the Thunder is it doesn't matter.
I'd be surprised if we won one game in the playoff series, no matter, because we're going to play Denver, we're going to play Golden State, where it's going to be hard for us to jump San Antonio. If you look at the records ahead of us, it's going to be hard for us to move. We're pretty much locked in that 8 seed. We're tied with San Antonio right now, but they have the tiebreaker. So we're playing Golden State in the first round,
and
guys.
If you're Oklahoma City, who do you want to play? There's nobody in the West that you really want to play. Maybe the Clippers. You're not going to get them.
Portland.
No, you don't want to play Portland.
Without their center, I do.
I don't think the Thunder right now can beat anybody, KP.
Yeah.
They might be able to beat the Spurs, and they probably would beat the Clippers. And you know what's sad about this? The Los Angeles Clippers, do we need to rewind here a couple of weeks ago at the trade deadline? They shipped pieces off because they wanted the draft.
Right. They were trying to tank.
And now they are 6th in the Western Conference. That's embarrassing for a team in Oklahoma City that has 2 of the 8 highest paid players in the league, and they have the 2nd highest payroll.
Yeah, you're right, Todd. Embarrassing is the word to use. This is like, guys, is this the most disappointing Thunder season in the history of the franchise?
As far as I'm concerned.
Oh, 100%.
We've had some disappointing years. I mean, the year we snuck into the 8th seed, I mean, we've had some bad years. But this is by far and above the most disappointing, because in terms of the talent, this was one of the highest ceilings before the season started that we've ever had. I mean, this isn't 2012 year with, KD. But I mean, this is a top 3 Thunder team going into the season. Maybe. I mean, maybe 2. So. Maybe top 2, top 3 team excitement
KP,
wise.
5 weeks ago, we're sitting here saying they're going to be they're going to be either 2 or 3. And
Yep.
at that moment, I said I wouldn't be surprised if they're the 6th seed. And we were all being played.
Todd,
for
you said
full.
I'm going to be
Seriously.
really hard on the Thunder. I think they could fall as far as 6, and we were like, I don't think so. But they're going to. I'm being hard on them, and in reality, we weren't being hard enough on them. They've fallen all the way to the 8th seed. It's like you. Embarrassing is the best word I can think of.
I truly
and disappointing.
believe the Thunder franchise sends out a memo to their media people that they employ, and they have talking points that they want emphasized by the TV and the radio crew every week.
Agreed.
And you know what the talking point this week is? And Antonio Daniels, who I love, I think he's the only semblance of reality that talk about Thunder basketball on TV
He's fantastic.
and radio. He, along with Michael Cage, who that doesn't surprise me, he's saying stupid stuff, and Pinto's saying it too, the radio play-by-play guy. Well, we now have made the playoffs 10 of 11 years. Really? Is that what it's about, making the playoffs now with a second highest payroll in the NBA? Come on.
The
And
Thunder
you know
are
what?
past
There's
that.
people that are waving their pom-poms and they're excited about getting their 2 free playoff shirts.
And do you remember the days of old where, I mean, when the Thunder were making the playoffs, it was constantly, we were looking ahead to who we're playing in the second round. The first round was usually a joke, and we were talking about this earlier. We can't just think that way because the NBA culture is different. There's no gimmies in the first round anymore. I mean,
True.
The higher seeds are going to win, but the sweeps are fewer and far between. The talent level in the NBA is much better than it was. But it just, again, back in the prime of the Thunder, which it feels so long ago, which it's scary to think that, guys. It was an easy first-round exit. And here's something else to think about, guys. The window for the Thunder is getting dangerously close to closing, and it's scaring me because the scary thing in the past was contracts. We don't have that worry anymore. The scary thing now is age. Russell and Paul George are coming in the next season over 30. It's a fact. They're not that old, but it's a fact. We have good contracts locked up. Our top 3 guys are locked up here for a while. That is a concern that we haven't had. We don't get to live without for a long time. The last few years, contracts are always a concern. Now we don't have it, and there's bigger questions than ever before.
And you know what? I'm tired, guys, of hearing about the Thunder way. You know what the Thunder way is that doesn't work anymore? Let's complain and bitch and whine about every call that doesn't go our way. And then let's just go shoot the heck out of 3-point jump shots.
Yeah.
The Dallas game on Sunday is just another example of how undisciplined this team really is and how they need a new person at the top. And I'm not always about going and screaming, fire the coach, because these guys are getting paid millions of dollars to play a game. But they have to be able to listen to a head coach in crunch time. They're down 1 late at home against the Mavericks team that honestly benefits more by losing than they did by winning that ball game. And they get not 1, they don't get 2, but they get 3 opportunities, down 1, and they all shoot 3-point jump shots. There's something wrong with this team that is in the top 12 of the NBA in scoring. They are in the top 5 of the NBA in steals, in fast break points, and points in the paint.
And you tell me the superstar that was there defending in the paint for the Mavericks that was preventing them from going and attacking the paint is the Mavericks. Like you said, Todd, they're trying to lose. They don't have some superstar. DeAndre Jordan's not waiting there in the center for you anymore. He wasn't that big of a superstar in his short time that he was there. But I mean, the fact that we shot 3 threes in a row, like you said, you have to blame someone, and it has to start with the coaching. We're not listening. Something has to change.
I am, and we're going to address that here in just a minute. I am a Presti fan. I know a lot of people aren't, but let me tell you something. Sam Presti in 11 years has kept this franchise viable. Let's not forget, even as bad as Dennis Schroeder is playing right now, he flipped Carmelo Anthony, who nobody wants, for Dennis Schroeder for a year.
And that's just his
And where would he
latest
be
fit.
without him for most of the year?
Paul George plays for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Exactly.
That was not a real...
Because of Sam Presti.
Yeah, there's
So
so many
huge,
things.
I'm a
Presti,
huge Sam Presti fan. I really am. Has he made mistakes? You bet he has. We can go all the way back to James Harden and beat that dead horse till we're tired of it again. I don't think Harden was ever going to be happy being the third wheel in Oklahoma City. I'm not buying it. Maybe they could have got another year or 2. Presti's made his mistakes, but he has got to change his philosophy. His philosophy of focusing on athleticism and length doesn't work. This is not a big man's league. There are dominant big men, but it's not like the days of the 60s, 70s, 80s Celtics and Lakers. It's a shooter's league.
Yep.
And the Thunder cannot shoot the basketball. The highest that they rank in shooting percentage is 18th in the NBA in field goal percentage. They're 23rd in three-point field goal percentage, and they are ahead of only the Lakers and the Heat from the free throw line at number 28 out of 30 teams.
That's embarrassing.
I'm shocked that they're as high as 28.
And we continue to shoot three-pointers with a team who one of the superstars shoots just under 29% from three-point range. The two best three-point shooters are Paul George at 38.7% and Jeremy Grant at 38.8%. Everybody else besides those two are either in the mid to low 30s shooting from three-point range. It's time to refocus here at Oklahoma City and go get some guys that could shoot the basketball. Athletes are great. The game is about athleticism, but it's also a guard and forward league, and you have to be able to make perimeter jump shots, and this team can't do it.
Especially now with every team, it seems like, having just 2 or 3 knockdown shooters that their only job is to come in and knock down 3 threes that game, and they do it. Oklahoma City does not have that person. Other than Paul George and occasionally, like you're saying, Jeremy Grant, if it's that corner three where he pops out and he's wide open, then I feel good about it. Other than that, I don't feel good about anybody taking a 3-point shot on that team, and that is a serious, serious problem, especially when they're going to take as many as they do. They settle way too often for a contested 3-point jumper.
Well, here's a stat to back that up. The Thunder have the fewest passes per possession in the NBA. And guess what, guys? That's fewer, Casady, than the Houston Rockets, who have ball stopper extraordinaire in James Harden.
Yeah.
And with Chris Paul, who also was an ISO-heavy player.
Yeah, it's like you said, Todd, it's just disgusting that we don't run an offense. It's dribble, pull up and shoot. And like you said, we're built to be this athletic team, and when the other team shut down the fast break, and I mean, that's all you have to do to defend the Thunder is just stop and slow down their transition game. And like you said, we were trying to build this athletic team, and I think it was a good experiment. I was all in on the offseason because we went on these good players, these athletic players, and went in for that service, and we just didn't get anything in return. So it was a good experiment, but it failed. You can say that it failed, and it's time to make a change. I don't know what that change is, but
I'm
going
to tell you what's going to happen. This team may win a game in the playoffs.
Maybe one.
Maybe. Regardless if they don't win any or they win one, somebody's losing their job. Yeah. That's just the stark reality of things right now in Thunder Nation. I don't think it's Sam Presti. I don't want it to be Sam Presti. Mm-hmm. I think Billy Donovan has had a good run here, but his message is stale.
It's not seeping through, but the same
bringing college coaches in KP doesn't work unless your players played for him in college. Billy Donovan's had a good run.
Yeah,
but it's over. They ignore him.
It's hard to coach guys like Russell Westbrook, who's a superstar, guys like Paul George. But look at this. Like, I don't know well, but I would have take a guy like Jeremy Grant. I feel like Billy Donovan's got to pat himself on the back if Jeremy Grant's a guy that he took under his wing and developed, because Jeremy Grant's a guy that was trying to make his way in the NBA. The Thunder go trade for him. Nobody heard of him when he's come here. We get him from the Sixers. He's just this long, lanky guy who comes out of Syracuse, who's got a great NBA DNA with his uncle and his dad. And I think as the Thunder have developed him, and he's really flourished under Billy Donovan. I don't know if that's Billy. I don't know if it's the Thunder system, but there's a guy that you can look to who's developed. We've developed some good guys on this team. Andre Robertson's you can't say this year, but Billy has done a good job developing some of those players, but I don't think he's doing a good enough job coaching the superstars. Look at every timeout. Watch every timeout where Billy's drawn up a huddle. Steven's in there pointing around. Jeremy's in there listening. Russell is usually, they tell him his part, and he's gone away from the huddle.
The other night against Denver,
Paul
he's
George
walking
has
out
done
to
it.
mid-court before they sound the second buzzer
I
to
hate
break
that.
up the timeout.
I hate that body language. It's just I think Russell just knows the offense. He knows what he's doing. We know he knows what's going on. He knows what he's doing. But what's to say Billy's not like, oh yeah, let's do this different here. Is it what it looks like where Billy draws up a play and Russell just goes and fires it up from 30 no matter what?
Okay, here's the question. If Billy Donovan is gone, and I think he very well could be, although they got a little premature in giving him another year on a contract that will end next year, earlier this season. Guys, you have any thoughts about maybe who they bring in. It's got to be somebody that's either won a title or had a big part of a team eventually winning the title. I think Mark Jackson is a name that comes to mind. I mean, somebody that veterans will respect. I don't think you can go out and get a college coach again.
No.
You have to hit a home run with this hire because we are in almost if we fire Billy Donovan, the alarms are sounding inside the Thunder building. A panic button is pressed by the organization. We are in desperation mode if we fire Billy Donovan. I believe that. So if the coach we go get, I don't know if he exists. The coach, if we're in desperation mode, you go get the perfect guy. And the perfect guy, I think there's two of them, and they're head coaches of the San Antonio Spurs and Dallas Mavericks right now. So I don't think, in my opinion, the perfect coach doesn't exist because he's occupied with a job already.
Yes. I like Mark Jackson a lot, and I think he could do a lot of big things for this Thunder team. I think it's going to have to be somebody of that caliber that has either had a broadcasting career or has been very successful with another team and maybe has stepped away from the game for a few years. Somebody like that is going to have universal just respect when as soon as they walk into the locker room, every player is going to immediately listen to them. That's what it has to be, because right now I don't think that anybody on that Thunder team is listening to the coaching staff at all. I think they're doing whatever they want, and it's obviously not working, and obviously the coaches are not able to get it turned back around in the right direction.
Here's a guy, Mo Cheeks.
That's
You know,
is that the only Russell
Mo
Westbrook?
Cheeks. I grew up a Philly fan. He was one of my very favorite 76ers, and he's a guy that really had a lot of success helping to develop Russell Westbrook very early in his career.
Is he the only guy that can talk to Russell too?
Yeah, the Russ
if there's a
whisperer.
guy that Russ is going to respect, it's Mo Cheeks. If we fire Billy and bring in a new coach, Mo Cheeks has got to stay on the staff. That I forgot to say, Mo. That was going to be, if I can't have Rick Carlisle or Popovich, I'd take Mo Cheeks next. I do like your Mark Jackson pick though, but my doubts with him are, why doesn't he have a job already? Is it because he doesn't want one? Is he liking the broadcast game? Why doesn't he have a job if he's this great coach? He did set the Warriors up, and the respect thing, not just as a coach that Mark Jackson will have a respect from. He was an excellent NBA player. If you guys watch that 30 for 30 on Reggie Miller, Mark Jackson was a dog out there, and he was also the dude talking Reggie up that goes, "Hey man, you're the baddest dude in this building. Like, go out and like, if you want, I want that guy in Russell Westbrook's ear. Sometimes
Hype
we
him
don't,
up.
but put him in PG's ear, put him in Steven's ear, saying, "Hey Steven, go shoot the dang ball. You're the best big on the court. Go score." I would like that motivator on this team, but that might be dangerous with Russell.
I don't know that Mark Jackson's that guy. He's just a name that comes to mind. He hasn't won a world championship, but he was very instrumental in developing what is now the Golden State Warriors. So I don't know. It's got to be somebody like that. I mean, Mark Jackson obviously is respected, I think, throughout the league. Why he doesn't have a job, I can't answer that.
Yeah,
but it's going to have to be somebody in those lines. You're not getting Rick Carlisle. Mark Cuban would never let that happen. Greg Popovich is never leaving San Antonio.
And if you're Rick Carlisle, do you want to leave the Mavericks right now with Doncic and Porzingis? No, that's a spot to be in.
They're set up.
Yeah, they're set up for the future.
All right, one more thing on the Thunder, then we'll move on. Casady likes petty. I don't like petty. And I can take petty when you're winning. I don't do well with pettiness when you're losing. And you're losing to teams that are double-digit underdogs. And lately, Russell Westbrook has reappeared as being one of the most petty human beings on the face of the earth. And I'm going to take the side of the media in this deal, okay? First of all, I know these guys get tired of being asked question after question, same question every night. It's your job. But Russell Westbrook has developed, I honestly think, a hatred for Oklahoma City columnist Barry Trammell. I don't know Barry personally. I know a lot of people that do know him, and from what I understand, he is a salt-of-the-earth guy with no malicious intentions whatsoever. Westbrook did it again to him after the Dallas game on Sunday. If you didn't hear it, Trammell asked the question about what's going wrong. Westbrook says, "Next question." Barry asks him another question. Westbrook then bends down to tie his shoe, and he says something to the Thunder PR guy, whose name is Matt. He said, "Matt, what do you want to do next?" I take that to mean one of two things. Do you want to get Barry Trammell out of this press conference, or do you want to end this press conference? That's the way I look at it. But his pettiness, guys, after the game and after losses has grown tiresome with me. And I think he gets, we've talked about this before, he gets way too much of a pass because he, you can almost say, was the savior of the Thunder franchise. If he leaves after KD bolts, we've talked about this 2 weeks ago, they're Sacramento, they're Orlando, they're Charlotte, maybe not even that good, and they're never getting back. But his pettiness is growing tiresome with me when you go out and you half-ass play, or not play. You can never say his execution is bad. You half-ass play well in games that you have to win. We've said it. Dallas did not want to win that game yesterday.
No.
They did not want him to win the game, but guess what? The Thunder gave it to him on a silver platter. So your thoughts on Russell Westbrook? Go ahead, Casady. I know you're a big Westbrook fan.
I'll say this. I defend Russell Westbrook on just about everything that he's ever done, but the way that he treats the media and the way that, in particular, like you're saying, he just refuses to answer questions from Barry Trammell. It's ridiculous at this point. It's not funny. It's not whatever he thinks it is. It's not cool. It doesn't make him look like a badass. It makes him look like somebody that doesn't know how to handle their emotions in a post-game press conference. And honestly, it's embarrassing for Russ, and it's embarrassing for the Thunder franchise. And there's a reason why all these national sports writers come after him day after day after day. It's because he's a dick to the media. That's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, his latest trick is the ice deal.
Right.
Let's move the ice around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. It's not that hard to answer questions after a game, especially when you're getting paid the amount of money that Russell Westbrook's getting paid.
And my thing with it is, I'm like you guys said, I'm just kind of sick of it. At first, it just didn't bother me, but now I'm at the point where Russ is like, it's only negative that he's bringing towards himself. All he has to do is answer a question a little bit. I mean, he can give the same answer and over, even do a little bit like Marshawn Lynch, the I'm just here so I don't get fined. Like, give generic answers just a little bit more than what you're doing, and it's paid attention to less. Give the not very, like, I love Paul George to death, but his questions, he's kind of a boring guy. Like, his answers, they're a little bit thoughtful, but he's just monotone, kind of a boring guy. Like Steven Adams, I want to hear everything that guy says, but it's half the accent, his humor, his thoughts. Like, give me a million interviews with Steven Adams, but just be boring. Like, the only way to get people to stop talking about it is to do the other side and just answer the questions. Just be a man, step up. Yeah, we're sucking. Take ownership. Say, hey, we suck. I'm going to figure out a way to do better. And if I don't, I'm going to tell you tomorrow, like, oh, man, this still sucks. We're going to figure it out. It just do some more than what you're doing. Do more than what you're doing.
Every time that he is just like an insolent child, like he acts on most nights after games when they lose, it's just adding fuel to that fire, like you're saying, Kelby. The storylines get cranked up to 11 whenever he comes out, and it may just be a regular loss in February. But if Russ comes out and he's refusing to answer questions, well, guess what? Now that loss is now elevated. Everybody's talking about it, and it carries over for the next couple of days, dominates the media coverage of the Thunder. It's a detriment to the team.
I promise you, the headline, people are talking more about Russell jiggling and drinking ice than he would be if he said, oh, came out tonight, gave it our best, didn't work out that well. Generic answer. Nobody's talking about that, I promise, but they're talking about him jiggling ice just to be petty.
Something we want to promote here very, very quickly. All of us at VIBELAND and VIBELAND Sports are excited about the upcoming Super Bowl. It's a bowling event to be held at the Dust Bowl, located underneath Fassler Hall in Midtown, Oklahoma City. It'll be taking place from 7 to 11 p.m. on April the 20th. There's multiple ways for you to get involved. However you choose, we'd love to have you out there. You can simply come out, hang out, enjoy great food, great drinks, great music. You can enter as a solo in the tournament. You can enter as a 3-person or 6-person team as well. All the info and pricing is available at Eventbrite page. Again, that's the VIBELAND Super Bowl bowling event coming up at the Dust Bowl on April the 20th from 7 to 11 in Midtown OKC. Let's move on very quickly. The NCAA tournament, we mentioned that not real hard to beat KP Casady and I, and most people are doing that. But I'll tell you what, this is what's good about college basketball. Probably with the exception of baseball, you couldn't get a more diverse field for a Final Four than you have right now that's going to Minneapolis next week. Auburn, Michigan State, Texas Tech, and Virginia. Noticeably absent KP, and I know it breaks your heart, the Duke Blue Devils.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, guys. Now that Duke is out, my interest in the tournament is a lot less than it would be. I was just having fun watching Zion. I mean, that's, like I said, it was a once-in-a-generation player to watch him lead that legacy of Duke. And for it to be over, it's weird to say, but like Duke had a great season. You know, they're 2 games away from the biggest game of their lives, and you would say it was a disappointing season. But I mean, they've got NBA players littered on that roster, so that's why you say it's a disappointing season. They have arguably the most exciting college basketball player ever, and they don't win a championship. So it's disappointing. And I'm not gonna lie, there's a little bit of wind out of my sails watching this NCAA tournament now that there's no Zion to watch.
I picked Duke like so many people did to win it. I don't care. My bracket's done. Good. Duke's gone. I can watch Zion Williamson playing in the NBA. I will say this, though, in fairness. Duke has tons of talent. I mean, their roster is littered with 5-star guys. But let us not forget, most of these guys are 18 or 19 years old, and the teams they're playing primarily have experienced players. I know that you say that many games in college, you're no longer really a freshman. You really are, age-wise. And so, well, I think it's a huge disappointment that they didn't win a national title and certainly not get to Minneapolis, Casady. People need to pump the brakes and realize that was still a very young basketball team.
Oh, yes. And look, if you're a Duke fan, obviously you cannot replace Zion Williamson. You just can't do it. He's I like the word you use, Kelby, once-in-a-generation talent. I mean, that's really what he is. You're not going to see another guy like that come through maybe ever at Duke. That being said, you're still going to be fine if you're a Duke fan because nobody else is going to have a Zion next year either. And so the young talent they had around him, that really surprised me that they got bounced out. I thought that they had a team that was just going to kind of just mow through the tournament. I didn't really see any.
They had a few close games.
Yeah, I didn't see any opposition for them until they got to at least the Elite Eight. And I mean, there were some shaky moments where they had to have the right bounces off the rim.
They were very fortunate to get by UCF.
Yeah. Exactly. They had to have the right bounce on the rim there to even get past into the
By
Sweet
the way,
16.
Zion misses a free throw. If they don't get that rebound, that's the story.
Oh,
if Zion misses that rebound and UCF gets the rebound, they're up 1. Instead, Duke picks it up, puts it back, and they're up 1, and that's the story of the game.
Hey, how about Texas Tech? Chris Beard, I'm telling you, is as good as it gets. Guns up, Red Raiders.
Absolutely. That's awesome for the Big 12. Awesome
listen
for
to
Tech.
this. There's only one conference that the last 2 years in America has had a team in the college football Final Four and the NCAA men's basketball Final Four. That would be the Big 12 after Texas Tech advanced by knocking off Gonzaga. All right, Auburn, Virginia, who you like in that ball game?
Man, I gotta go with Virginia. I just think that the defense that they're able to play, they can shut anybody down and force the opponent to play their game. And at this stage in the tournament, that is a huge advantage.
I like Virginia too. The experience. I mean, I think they're still fighting to overcome last year making the history in the worst kind of way, being the first 1 seed ever to lose. I think their experience, they're back with a mission. Again, though, you guys, you can't look past this. Auburn is hot right now. I mean, they are the hottest team in the tournament, I'd argue. Auburn and Texas Tech probably, but I got to go with experience here. I'm taking Virginia as well.
I just wonder if taking a week off may hurt Auburn in that circumstance.
That'll let them cool down a little bit.
But you say that, guys. I'm going to go with Virginia because I think their defense carries the day. But Auburn, let's not forget, they won the Southeastern Conference tournament. And then after winning their first game, they have beaten in succession a who's who of college basketball. Kansas, North Carolina, and Kentucky. And those were not all in the same week. So I don't think that taking time off is going to hurt the Tigers.
Fair
I
point.
think they are on a mission.
And by the way, if those 3 schools, those are the 1, 2, and 3 most combined career wins as a college basketball program, right?
So you literally
Just the
couldn't
Blue Bloods.
have a more difficult path.
I think it's the
Final
greatest
Four.
feat to get to the Final Four that's ever been done.
I may have to agree
No,
with
I
that.
wouldn't say those 3 schools are rolling out their best teams of all time, but still, that is very, very impressive.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if they win it all, that is going to be a great story to look back on.
Oh, man.
All right, the other semifinal, Texas Tech, Michigan State. I'll start. I'm going to go with the Spartans for only one reason. I just can't bet against Tom Izzo in the NCAA tournament. Although I think Texas Tech is a lot like Auburn. They're kind of on a mission. And they are very, very good. They're so well coached. If I'm a Tech fan, though, I have to wonder if the price for Chris Beard is becoming out of reach now with this march to Minneapolis. You guys' thoughts?
Do they pull the Kentucky move that Kentucky pulled today and go ahead and sign him to a lifetime contract? Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
Calipari signed a lifetime contract. Tech would never do that.
They don't have the money to do
No, but I wanted to ask you guys this earlier. Think about the history of Texas Tech. Chris Beard, greatest coach ever, coach of Texas Tech. Am I right? Or am I wrong?
He's had
Gotta be.
I mean,
Right there.
Bob Knight never got him to a Final Four.
No. And Bob Knight was towards the end of his career. Anyway.
Yeah, he was. He was winding down, but
I
he's
think
still
he
a good
might be
coach.
right. I think he might be right.
That might be true.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. But yeah, again, Texas Tech, Michigan State. Back to, I said it on this very podcast, do not bet against Tom Izzo. And just like my advice that I gave myself in the NFL playoffs, I didn't take it. I bet against him. And now I don't have a team in the Final Four.
Me
and
too,
there's
bro.
Tom
We'll,
Izzo.
we'll just lament our sorrows together. How's
So
that?
I'm all in. Go Red Raiders. Guns up. I'm all in for Texas Tech. I've got a lifetime buddy that's a huge Texas Tech Red Raiders fan. I've been texting him this week. I've been cheering for him. But I do think Michigan State pulls through. Tom Izzo.
I'm going to ride my one Final Four pick, and I'm going to say that Texas Tech is going to take down Michigan State. I just think that right now they are playing – you mentioned Auburn being hot. I feel like Texas Tech is also just hot right now. And that team, when they really get going, they're tough to shut down. They can score with just about anybody, and they can play very good defense as well. And I give a little bit of an advantage here to Texas Tech. I think they're going to come out. They've got nothing to lose. They're just happy to be there, and I think they're going to surprise some people.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if Tech or Auburn or both were in the NCAA championship game. I mean, they're both playing very, very well, but I'm going to go with Michigan State and Virginia. All right, one other thing. Since we've last talked, of course, our last episode 14, was our Major League Baseball preview show. 1 weekend in the books. Obviously, it's hard to tell. There is one team that if I'm a fan of theirs, I'm very concerned about early, and that's the Chicago Cubs, KP, because of the bullpen, which you talked about on last week's show.
I'm already scared. I'm already nervous.
But you thought that was going to be a problem.
I brought it up. I said the bullpen's going to be a problem, and it's proved to be a problem every single game. The first game we completely dominated, but if you go back and look, they gave up a monster 2-run home run in the 9th inning. Now, when you're up by 10, a 2-run homer is not a big deal to give up in the 9th inning, but still, the fact that you're doing that is cause for concern. And then game 2. They're up the entire game until the 8th inning. Bottom of the 7th, I think, is when the Rangers started their comeback. And then yesterday, they went ahead and lost on a walk-off wild pitch. So it is the bullpen is the problem. I mean, the starters haven't been great either. Lester did have a great first out. Lester looked like himself. Darvish, still concerned. He comes out against the Rangers, first 2 batters, strikes him out, looking great, walks the next 3. Is pulled after 2 2/3 innings, has a career-high 7 walks. He said he felt great early on, lost his command. That's cause for concern as well. He was so confident in spring training after an injury-riddled year last year, terrible year last year, huge contract. That was a huge question mark. I am nervous, and the bats, though, not nervous about the bats. They're putting up runs, but we're losing, scoring 10 runs and 8 runs in a game to the Texas Rangers. That's a problem. So the bats I'm not worried about, but the bullpen I am still very concerned about.
Okay, here's why there's absolutely no reason really to panic after 1 weekend. Because my beloved Kansas City Royals are 2-1, and they set atop the division in the AL Central after 3 games.
I'm telling you, mark it down. Royals are going to win that division.
Boy,
right?
Whatever you're drinking over there, I'll take some of that after we get
I was
off
just
the air.
talking like we're in like September again, but I've got my Thunder anger. I need to transfer
why
it
it
over
is
to my
big
Cubs
for the
too.
Royals. They did not win a series until May last year.
Oh.
That was the first time that they won their first series in May last year.
Wow.
And they beat a team in the division that still has a lot of question marks, but we all like to be third place in the Central when it's all said and done, the Chicago White Sox. How about this? The Yankees, the Red Sox, Cleveland, Houston, Washington, Atlanta, and St. Louis. Don't tell me none of those teams are going to be in the playoffs.
Right.
All lost their first series of the season. And how about New York and that offense? Which, by the way, Stanton has now gone to the DL.
Yes, he has.
The Yankees, for all their prowess up and down that lineup, they struck out 31 times against Tampa Bay's pitching staff. And they left 23 runners on base in the first 3 games. So
love to hear that.
I know as a Red Sox fan, you're not pumping the panic button yet.
Maybe a bit on the Sox, though, because I don't know if you've seen this, but the Red Sox starting pitchers are the worst in Major League Baseball. Their starters have an ERA north of 13 right now. And look, it's the worst start for the pitching staff in over a decade. And that was the one thing that I kept talking about during that preview was how good this starting rotation is. I was worried about them closing out games. Well, they're scoring runs. They're doing everything right in the bullpen, but Boston can't pitch. The Yankees can't hit. I don't know what's going on in the AL East right now, but there's some weird stuff happening in this first weekend.
Something's got to give.
Is one weekend.
I know.
I trust you. The Boston Red Sox will be able to pitch very, very shortly. Here's the thing, though. That's a tough opener for Boston. Not that Seattle is great. It is very difficult in any professional league to go to Seattle and play because you're going across 3 time zones. And keep in mind, the Red Sox, they don't train in Arizona. They're in Florida.
Yes.
So you're making one of the longest trips possible in the continental United States, and you're opening in a time zone 3 hours away from where you've spent the entire spring training.
And unless I'm mistaken, I believe there's a 10-game West Coast road trip to start this off. So they've played already 4 in Seattle, and they're going to continue to go play down in California now. So not the easiest start for the Champs.
I don't think Seattle's going to be great, but that is a tough place to play. Always is. All right, coming up next, our guest on episode 15, it is Keith Coury, the proprietor of QuestSpeed out in California. We'll hear that interview next as episode 15 of VIBELAND Sports continues in a moment. Today, we're talking to the founder and owner of QuestSpeed in Southern California, Keith Coury. Keith, thanks so much for taking time to come on our podcast. You've really been involved in athletics for a long, long time and have managed to turn that passion for helping others into a career.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me.
Let's talk a little bit about your background. You were a 3-sport athlete in high school. You played Division I level football, and I guess things didn't always go as planned. You signed with Cal State Fullerton, played for the Titans a couple of years. They dropped the program, and then you were forced to kind of readjust your college career. Take it from there.
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, like you said, I got a scholarship out of high school to play football. It was always my passion, and was kind of my goal in life was to be able to play college football and hopefully one day pursue the NFL. And when I was at Fullerton, they ended up dropping their program. And so I was kind of trying to figure out where I was going. And it's interesting because some coaches that had recruited me out of high school to go to another university, they ended up at this one particular university. When they found out that Fullerton was dropping their program, they called me and asked me if I would, if I'd be interested in transferring. And I was all in because they were actually the first school to offer me a scholarship out of high school. So I ended up going up to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and played my last 2 years up there. And then once I got done, like I said, I invested, my whole life into sports. And so I was exhausted, mentally and physically, and kind of walked away from it for a while. And then opportunity arose to work with some kids. And I was always fast growing up, and I had an opportunity to work with some Olympic track coaches when I was in high school to kind of work on my speed. And so that was something that I wanted to pass on to kids. And it started out as a hobby and became my passion. And, 20 years later, I'm here talking to you.
Keith, let's back up a little bit before you go to college during high school. How much of the physical and mental aspect of the game was something that you focused on? A lot of kids don't really think a lot about the mental aspect, especially at such a young age.
Absolutely. The physical side of it, my dad was a high school football coach. So the physical side, I understood that nature of it. I was always one of those kids that, worked at what I did. I was a good athlete. I was never a great athlete. I mean, I was good in any sport that I played, but I had to really, physically work at it to get there. But the mental side of it for me was, and you're right, most kids don't understand that side of it. The mental side for me, I believe, is what kind of separated me from a lot of kids in my position at that time, because, you know, as I said, my dad was a high school football coach, so he really instilled that into me at a very early age. And I'm probably ultra competitive. You know, I was told a lot of times when I was growing up from teachers that I was too competitive, and I think that was how I grew up, you know. And so my whole thing was, if I'm playing, I'm winning. I'm not here to get a participation award or to be a part of, you know, we all make something. It was, if we're going to step on a field, let's play to win. And so that's how I approached everything, from a training standpoint to playing and competing, to even in the classroom, which a lot of kids don't understand. You know, I was a 3.9 student in high school, because everything to me, and the way that I was raised, everything played a part. You know, be the best student I could be the best athlete I could be the best at everything I did. I just tried to be the best at it.
At what point do you realize, hey, the real world is calling Keith Coury, and that dream of no longer playing to the National Football League exists?
I think that it entered early on in college. That's a great question. You know, I think in today's era, you know, because of the opportunities that are out there financially for a lot of athletes, that a lot of kids grow up, and even parents. I mean, I talk to parents all the time. They need to relax a little bit, but, you know, everybody thinks that they're going to get a shot to play in the NFL someday, you know. And for me, as soon as I got to call, you know, to back up a little bit, I was one of the best football players in my area. And I'm not saying that as like a brag. I mean, I had a lot of accolades coming through, and I was one of the fastest guys in the area that I grew up in. And when I got to college, I realized very quickly everybody's good and everybody's as fast as I am, you know, and most of them are bigger than me, you know. And so I realized early on that the chances of ever playing professionally were slim to none. And then it was just all about being the best I could be at the level that I was at, and try to play that, you know, that I could. And the interesting part about that, and I tell this to the kids all the time when we're working with them, is you be the best that you are. Because if you don't do everything that you need to do to be the best at what you are, you're going to regret those moments. And I can honestly tell you that I don't have any regrets, because, you know, I was limited to a certain degree athletically, but I gave everything I had. And so when it was over for me. I mean, it hurt, you know, it hurts to know that your career is over with, but I gave everything I had. And so, you know, 25, 30 years later, I don't have any regrets of everything that I put into it.
You don't have any regrets, but looking back, you said you had to step away from sports altogether for about 10 years. Did you almost burn yourself out because of all those things?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think I don't want to say burned out because I trained too hard or because I was involved in all these sports or anything like that. I think I say burned out. It wasn't even burned out. I was just exhausted physically and mentally. I played at such a hard level for myself that physically I abused myself. You know, had injuries that to this day affect me, limit me, you know, knee injuries, shoulder injuries, you know, all that stuff that goes along with playing football. And then mentally, I was just exhausted because I had put so much into it that I don't regret that I put all of it into it, but it pays its toll. You know, you get exhausted by putting that much time and energy into something. Look, I mean, here, you know, you take it to this where I'm at today, even in this training industry, right? I've been putting work into this thing for 20 years. And there's times that I have to take a step back and kind of recharge my battery, because if you're so passionate about something and you put so much energy into it that you get exhausted, it exhausts you after a while.
You've, again, made a career out of something that at one point was a hobby, and I think that hobby started during the 10 years, Keith, that you were actually away from sports. What did you do for that decade after your football playing career had ended?
I was actually in the financial services arena. I was a financial planner for about 10 years after I got out of college, and that just happened by accident. A friend of mine.
So basically, it was about as far of the other end of the spectrum, right?
Yes. And by the way, I had a 10-year career in that and hated every moment of it. That was not me one bit. It was an opportunity for me for provide for my family. And, you know, there was something that kind of got my mind away from sports. But I realized again, early on in that career, this is not something I want to do for the rest of my life.
Was you had a kinesiology degree or a physical
Yes.
education degree? Was training eventually something you saw yourself wanting to make a long-term career out of?
You know, what I wanted to do, honestly, when I got into college and chose the kinesiology path was I was going to follow basically I come from a family of football. My uncle was an NFL football coach for 30 years. I have cousins that are coaching in the collegiate level right now. My dad was a high school coach. So I loved that game, and I had such a passion for it that I ended up wanting to I was going to be a coach, a football coach, and a physical education teacher. That's what I thought. And then again, I got introduced to being, I did some student teaching. And when I was coming out of college, and I realized I don't want to be a physical education teacher. I had no interest in teaching. At the high school level or at the elementary or middle school level, that wasn't an interest to me at all. But I did know somehow, some way down the road, I was going to be involved in sports again. And so it was just a matter of, I didn't know when that was going to be. I didn't know what the sports performance industry did not exist. So it literally was something that we couldn't even think that far ahead. Like that, you were either a football coach, or you were a strength and conditioning coach, or you were, some type of sports coach. But as far as being a sports performance trainer or coach, that wasn't even around back then. So I didn't know where it was going to go. I just knew that someday I was going to get back involved in the sports world again.
Keith Coury, the founder and owner of Quest Speed out of California, is our guest. Keith, you started Quest Speed after you had a lot of requests from parents to train their young athletes. Take us through how you actually came upon founding this, what basically is a trend-setting business in Southern California.
Yeah, so I ran into some former teammates of mine from college about 10 years after I'd gotten out. I actually had a cousin that was down in the Orange County area in Southern California. And if you're not familiar with that area, it's kind of towards the coast. And so they were training some athletes down there, and they found out who my cousin was and told him to come and see him. So I went down just to visit him, say hi to him. I hadn't seen him for a while. And they were training some athletes down there. And that's kind of the mecca of Southern California, is the whole Orange County, LA County areas. So I went down there just to visit them, and they were doing some speed work with some kids, and they saw me and threw me in the mix because they knew what my background was, and that, I was fast when I was playing. And so I just started working with kids, and the parents started seeing it. And there was actually parents traveling 40, 50, 60 miles from where we were at just to go down there and train, because there was nothing out in the Inland Empire in the area that we were at the time. And so they found out where I lived, and they started contacting me and asking me if I'd work with their kids. And I started doing it just as a hobby on the weekends at the local football fields and different places like that. And the next thing I know, it was one of those deals where I just started having, 50, 60, 100 kids showing up with parents wanting me to train them. And I realized this was my calling, and this was the industry I was supposed to be in.
Keith, one of the things that's on your website about Quest Speed is it says it focuses on results, not rhetoric. What is result to you? Because every athlete certainly has different ceilings and limitations to what is a success for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So results to me is when an athlete comes in, it's about getting them to perform at their optimum level. So many times today we see these athletes and coaches and the media and everybody else, especially in social media today, they're comparing, one athlete to another athlete. And a lot of times you can't even compare them because they're completely different physiology. Their body's built differently. Physically, everything about them's differently. And so my thing is results driven for us is we have a metric system just like everything else is out there. So we're able to quantify the results that kids get. We test them on a regular basis and see where they're at. And so it's just about, let's make them better every time that we go to test them. Let's see the results and see how much better we can make that athlete. And that's what we focus on, is just making them the best possible athlete that we can make them. And in saying that, the thing about my business is I am not a sports specific business. And I tell people that all the time. My goal and what we do here is we try to make the best athlete we can possibly make. Whatever sports you play, your coach is going to work with that sport or whatever you're doing, right? Your position trainer or whatever you go to, they're going to work on that stuff. My job is to make you the best athlete because in my opinion, and you see it in today's world, is the better the athlete, the better opportunity they have to play whatever sport they're playing. You see it in Major League Baseball today. I mean, you see some freak athletes. I trained some freak athletes in baseball that 10, 15, 20 years ago, you would have never thought those guys were playing that sport, you know? So our goal is, and our job here is to create the best athlete we can for each individual person that comes in.
Is it more important what you do, Keith, at a younger age, developing good traits, good habits, the right psychology of a young athlete, as much as more so than it is the pro athletes that you deal with?
That's interesting. That's an interesting question, because I think there's a fine line you walk there, you know? And what I mean by that is I have parents that come in and they're asking me to work with their 8-year-old kid, and he's got to get faster. And I'm looking at him going, the kid's 8. You know, and take them to the park and let them run around. And so there's that fine line. I think you get kids that are like 12 or 13, and it's funny that you bring that up, because I say that to a lot of them. It's like, I'm glad that I have them at this age, because they haven't developed a lot of bad habits yet. Mm-hmm. When they get into their later high school years and college years, it's really hard to break some bad habits and kind of fix, you know, some different deficiencies that they have in those areas. So there's a fine line. I think there is an age that's too young, and I've seen it, and it's crazy being in it for so long. Probably the last 5 years, it's exploded, and you start getting some crazy stuff coming through with, you know, people that are looking at their 7-year-old kid and going, I got to get him, you know, ready, because he's got a shot to make Major League Baseball or professional football down the road. And I'm going, he might not even be playing any sports in the next 5 years, or she, you know. So there is a fine line, but I do think if you get them at a decent age, and usually what I tell people is like 12, 13 years old is kind of that age that it really starts. And I say that because they just cognitively from a mindset, they don't really have the awareness to pick up on it when they're much younger than that. I mean, once in a while we'll get a younger kid in here that's like, wow, that kid's figured it out already. But for the most part, it's usually around puberty where they can start to understand the physical and the mental demands that it's going to take to kind of get them where they need to go. And we know where they're at, you know, I mean, that because when they get to that age, you kind of have an idea how important it is to the kid.
Do you agree with me, though, that, Keith, sometimes even at a younger age, it's better to get them exposed to a program like yours than parents or coaches that put them through the rigors that like, we'll take baseball, for instance. There's a whole lot of pitching problems with arms now because of the misuse at a young age.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I do agree with you there for sure. I think that, you know, again, with this influx of the social media world and this beauty of the internet that we have out there, any parent or anybody out there can go pull up a YouTube video and think that they have it figured out, you know? And so I tell people, you know, we have enough information to make us dangerous now, you know? And so I do think that you have to find somebody, but in saying that, listen, and I'm not real popular in a lot of places because I speak my mind. There's a lot of sports performance training institutions out there, or facilities, or whatever they want to call themselves, that I question some of the people that are behind that training. You know, I'm huge into, I've been doing this for a long time. And like I said, did my undergrad work in kinesiology, got a master's degree, and I'm actually working through getting my PhD right now in exercise science. And so I'm a big research and scientifically proven guy. And in saying that, you have to be able to apply it. There's two different fields of thought that works in our industry. And one is you just have guys that are application guys that don't really have a background. They may have played professional sports at one point or whatever it is, you know, they didn't even play sports, but they love the sports. And so they watch YouTube videos or pull up Instagram stuff, and they think that's how they're going to open up a training facility. And then you have other people that are purely science-based and have no idea how application and how the mental side of it works with athletes. And so you have to find that. I tell people all the time, go find that person. Well, I don't care if it's me or any other trainer out there. Find out what their background is. Find out the experience they have. And then here's some questions to ask them, and ask them these questions. And if they can't answer these questions, then, you know, you might want to think about if that's the type of person that you want to train with. So, I mean, yeah, it's important, but at the same time, it's important that you find the right type of people too if you're going to get them at an early age.
Keith, okay, let's go through a typical program, if you can, just in a few short minutes, and how long it's recommended that the athlete go through this performance.
Yeah, so we have my specialty, and obviously from talking and where I focus on is speed development. That's, in sports today, that's the first thing that everybody asks. It doesn't matter if it's softball, baseball, football. It doesn't matter anymore. Everybody is, how fast are they? How can they run? I mean, you watch the NFL Combine, and the 40-yard dash is that's primetime television now. They want to see what speed looks like. So it's always been my focus. And I tell people, I don't try to do everything with everybody. I try to be great at one thing. And so speed for me was something that that's everything we direct in our training program is directed on speed and explosion. How fast can we get them? How quick can we get them? And how much explosion can we create in everything that they're trying to do? So through a typical workout with us, most kids come in, if they're a part of our strength training program, and again, our strength training program is all predicated towards speed and explosion. I'm not a guy that believes, and again, here's where the controversy comes in. I'm a strength and conditioning guy, and I get all that, but I'm not a guy that believes that you need to squat 500 pounds and bench press 400 pounds. And, I tell people all the time, if lifting as heavy weight as you can was going to help recruit all the muscles you need to get you faster, then why aren't the most strongest men in the world the fastest guys on the planet? And so our strength training program is all predicated on pure speed and explosion. Everything that we do with weights, we're moving it as fast as we can from point A to point B. And so that's our weightlifting program. And so if they come in, it's usually 4 days a week, and we're in and out in an hour to an hour and a half at the very most. And then speed development, we work on speed twice a week. And the reason that we do that is because just through my research and the muscle and the energy systems that you're using, you have to give your body time to recover from it. And so if you're out there doing it every day, you're not getting your body recovering. You're not using the energy systems that you need to be using. And we do a lot of our what we call linear speed, straight ahead speed on a high speed treadmill. And that's, again, is a very controversial subject in our area. And you get a lot of debate between what we call ground-based training and high-speed treadmill training. But I got introduced to the high-speed treadmill about 10 years ago, and I'm absolutely blown away by how much we can create speed with our athletes because we're able to get their body to adapt to faster speeds. I actually did a research study, almost a year ago. We started this research study. We completed it back in August, and we're actually putting it out to get published. We think it's going to end up getting published here in the next 3 to 6 months, but we actually did a research study comparing high-speed treadmill training to ground-based speed training. And what we found through the study, we did a 4-week study, and we took 20 college athletes and split them in half and, had half of them do ground-based training and half of them do high-speed treadmill training. And then we went back and tested all of them at the end of it. And the guys that did the high-speed treadmill training reduced their 40 times as a group average, almost 0.2 of a second compared to the ground-based guys. So it's something that's very controversial, but we do that. And now in saying that, it's very demanding on the body. And so we have to make sure that they get time to recover in between training days. So those training, to answer your question, make the long story longer, is basically what we do is kids will come in anywhere from 2 days a week to 4 days a week, depending on if they're integrating strength training into our program, if they're doing just speed training. There's a variety of different things that we do with working on.
Keith, what has separated Quest Speed from a lot of its now competition of the 15-plus years you've been doing it? You say you're controversial on a lot of things, but yet you're the most successful at what you do in a very large population area.
Sure. I think the biggest one is knowledge. I think having 20 years of experience, I've gained credibility and I've gained a reputation because I'm still around. A lot of guys, it's so funny. I was thinking about, one of acquaintance of mine was showing me a sports performance facility in our area. And you walk in, it's this 25,000 square foot building, and it's got all the bells and whistles, and it's absolutely beautiful when you walk in. And that's like the anti of who I am. I am a guy that I'm research based and I'm science based in everything I do, but I take all the fluff out of stuff. I don't look at the new fads. I don't care about the new fads. And whenever somebody introduces me to something, I immediately go in and look at the research on it and what the proven statistics are on it and the science behind it. And if it's legit, then I'll use it. And if it's not, I throw it out the window. And so I am a guy that you come into my facility and we're grinding it out, man. We're going to work and we're not wasting energy. We're not doing a bunch of stuff that looks good. We're doing stuff that works. And so I think because of that, that's how I've lasted, because I don't get caught up in the craziness that's out there in the social media world, and the bells and whistles become more important than the product itself in a lot of cases.
Yep.
And so we're proving results and people get results. I've actually had people leave my training because they found out about somebody else out there that, had this big, beautiful thing and told them they could do all this stuff, and then went and trained with them for a few months and ended up back in my facility. And like, they can't compare to what you do, and because we're just results driven. And that's what you talk about rhetoric and results. Everything that we do is proven results, and proven results are, we got to make you better every time you come in. And that's all we focus on.
Keith, do people imitate what you're doing? They just don't admit that they're imitating it, because that's the best form of flattery. And you've obviously had the longevity and the results.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to take credit for it and say, yeah, they do. I mean, there's stuff that I do that's been around for a while, and there's stuff that is coming out and people see it and they kind of jump on it. But yeah, I have guys that I worked with, that I trained, that wanted to get in the sports performance industry, when they were younger, and I've trained them and taught them how to work with athletes and showed them different things that we do, that ended up leaving, and now they've opened up their own place. And I see a lot of their stuff that they do, and I'm like, I taught that guy how to do that, so yeah, it's good. But like you said, it's flattery to me. It's, listen, we live in just in Southern California alone, we got 40 million people, right? So, it's not like we're going to put each other out of business type of thing, So my biggest thing is, and I'm very, I don't want to say critical, but I guess with lack of a better term, I'll say critical. I'm very critical with sports performance trainers that are out there, because it's a passion of mine and I take this very serious. And I tell people all the time is, if you're going to do this, then be professional at it and know what you're talking about. Don't just go out there and do it because you get to wear that trainer shirt and it looks good. Be somebody that becomes legendary and people talk about, and make these guys, when we get in the professional spectrum, we're working with guys that are literally fighting for $1 million contracts. And so if we don't do our job as trainers, we're doing them a disservice. And so I tell, it's very important to me that these guys that are out there, if I have an opportunity to talk to them, is, hey man, be professional at what you do and be the best at what you do.
What would your advice be to parents, guardians that are looking to find a place like yours? I mean, what type of research do they need to find the best type of trainer to get their kid to?
I think one is, it's not about, it's a great question, because I just had this conversation. I just had a parent question me just recently that they brought their kid in and they were at a couple other facilities, and I did every time somebody comes in, I do what we call a free assessment on the kid, and we'll put them through a little workout, and I can kind of do some measurements on them and see where they're at. And this particular parent had gone to a couple other places, and after we were done, she looked me dead in the eye and she said, listen, and almost embarrassed to ask me the question. She said, what's your background? I mean, how do you, what's your experience in this and what's your background in this? And so I told her, I have 20 years experience and, working on a PhD in exercise science, and have trained over 6,000 athletes. And, I got people all over the place. And she said, great, we're in. She said, because I can't tell you how many times I've gone to other places and it's like their experiences that they played in the NFL, or they played, college football, or they played professional baseball, and they were a business major in college, or they have no experience at all from a scientific standpoint, And so the questions that I tell parents to ask is, one is, what's your experience and background? And it's not necessarily that you need a degree in this industry, but you better understand the research and the science, and you better be able to understand how the body works and why you do the things you do. The days of just doing drills, listen, when I was in high school, I look back now, and when we were in high school doing drills, I look back now and go, that stuff, that was worse for us than it was good for us. now with the research that's out there, but yet I still see guys doing drills that we did back in 1985. They still lift like we did back in 1985. And I'm going, how, I tell parents this all the time. Look, based on your kid sweating or your kid throwing up, that doesn't tell you your kid had a good workout. If you want your kid to throw up, give me 10 minutes. I'll go make your kid throw up.
Do you agree that there's training places that almost will guarantee if you go through my program, your kid's going to end up where he wants to be playing D1 football? Well, as opposed to Quest Speed, we don't guarantee you that. We just guarantee results for your kid and his athletic ability.
I know for a fact that there's places out there. I hear them. I have parents come into me and tell me. I have kids that are being held back in school right now because they ran into somebody that runs an academy somewhere and told them that if you hold your kid back, he'll train with us 6 hours a day and we'll get him into the Pac-12. I hear that stuff all the time. And oh, by the way, I'm looking at the parent and the dad's 5'3" and the mom's 5'1", and they swear their kid's going to get a Division I football scholarship someday somewhere, And I'm like, how are you going to sell that to somebody? And shame on that guy for doing it. It's not about me guaranteeing your kid to get a scholarship somewhere. It's me guaranteeing that I'm going to make your kid a better athlete tomorrow than he is today. And that's all it should ever be. And by the way, the only way that's going to happen is if your athlete is prepared to come in and go to work. Because if they think they're just going to show up and we're going to sprinkle some magic dust on them and all of a sudden they're going to be better. No, it doesn't work that way. It all comes down to what it's always been. You've got to be willing to work your butt off to master your craft.
Last question for you, and then we'll let you go. Over 5,000 or 6,000 athletes that you've worked with. The majority baseball players, I know that what your program is for all sports, but do you see more baseball players than anybody else?
I do today. I would say for the early part of my career, not even early, up until probably, 8 years ago, I would say that 75% of the athletes I trained were football players. And then a quick story on that, how it all changed is I don't know if you guys are familiar. I call him a kid because they're all kids to me now, but I train a kid named Jake Marisnik that plays center field for the Houston Astros. Mm-hmm. And I started training him when he was in high school. And this kid, he's right now is probably one of the fastest guys in Major League Baseball right now. Well, I started training him his sophomore year in high school, and kid had no idea how to run. He looked like a baby deer when he was running. But in saying that, was a heck of an athlete. He was a all-state football player in high school. He's 6'5", now he's 6'5", 230 pounds, and he's one of the most athletic guys in baseball. And you watch him play defensively, and the guy he's on ESPN once a week with some of the catches that he makes, right? And it's unbelievable watching him. But he had no idea how to run, didn't know what he was doing. Well, we worked with him, and by his senior year in high school, he was a projected high-round draft guy coming right out of high school. And at that this was probably, this was 9 years ago, 10 years ago when he graduated from high school. And that was the point that all of a sudden the baseball community, because he was such a big name in this area, the baseball community heard about him training with this guy. And so then I started getting baseball. And now it's probably 60% of my athletes now are baseball players, and it's because, and I credit this because speed has become such an integral part of baseball today. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Like I joke about this with my baseball guys and the MLB guys we work with. It's like, man, you guys are like 10 years behind the times. It took you guys 10 years to figure out how important speed was in the game. NFL's been talking about speed for the last 20 years. You guys have been just talking about it in the last 5 years, but it is. And so now that's where a lot of my athletes come from, is because their parents come in and they're talking to pro scouts or they're talking to college coaches, and the college coaches and the pro scouts are like, great baseball player, but he's got to get faster. And so how do we work that?
Man, great conversation today. Great job you do out in Southern California. We'd love to have you back at some point.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Keith Coury, the founder and current owner of Quest Speed, a training facility based in Southern California, our guest. We'll be back for our final segment and to wrap it up in just a moment. And a big thank you to the proprietor of Quest Speed in California, Keith Coury. A very interesting interview, and Glad to have guys like that on our shows. We got another great one coming up. It's a bonus podcast and a real long one, about a 20-minute interview with the CEO of Sports One Marketing. We talked about this in our first segment, David Meltzer. He is the co-founder of that organization, along with Hall of Fame quarterback Warren Moon. That will drop on Friday from VIBELAND Sports. Fan poll question of the week. It was, which is the toughest division in baseball? Was it the NL East, the AL East, the NL Central, or the AL West? 47% of you said the AL East, 21% said the NL Central, 18% the NL East, and 14% the American League West. So again, thank you so much for taking part in our VIBELAND Sports fan poll question of the week. Speaking of, the new one is out. Which team will win the national championship? A, Auburn, B, Michigan State, C, Texas Tech, or D, Virginia? Log on at VIBELAND Sports on Twitter and cast your vote. Results will be announced on next week's 16th episode of VIBELAND Sports. Can you believe 15 already in the books?
I know.
Yeah, get out. I can't believe it's been 15. Get out there and vote on that fan poll, guys. Redeem yourself for your terrible brackets. So that's what I'm there to do.
That's right.
Again, one more time, I want to remind you about VIBELAND's Super Bowl bowling event coming up at the Dust Bowl, located underneath Fassler Hall in Midtown Oklahoma City. Mark the date down, April the 20th, 7 to 11. There's multiple ways to be a part of it. You can simply eat, drink, listen to great live music. You can enter solo the bowling tournament, a 3-person or a 6-person team as well. More information about that event coming up April the 20th at the Dust Bowl in Midtown Oklahoma City can be made available at our Eventbrite page. Good job, guys. See you again next week.
Sounds great.
Same time, same place. I'll be here.
All right, for KP, for Casady, I'm Todd. This is VIBELAND Sports, a weekly presentation of VIBELAND Media.